that I'm really passionate about, or there's a song that I mean, I find myself driving down the road sometimes, and I'll think of a song that I like, and I'll think, God, I gotta try to get that into a movie. Sometimes it's just like that, you know. And then a cue will come up, and that song will come in my head, and I'll be like, all right, I'm gonna pitch this song for this movie and really try to make it happen, you know. So it absolutely plays into it, you know, if you have something that's a favorite. It's interesting because when you're working on a smaller budget film, this is a really good point, and I've worked on a number of them. You have to find bands that you have to go off the beaten path. You have to because you just don't have the money to just go call up a big publisher and have them submit stuff, because, you know, a big publisher has a floor as to what they're going to license something. And sometimes, you know, I'll be honest with you, I got $500. I've got $1,000, and I got a cue, and that's for both sides of it, so the sync and master. So I got to do what I got to do to get this cue. I like to, you know, I'll go on MySpace, but it can be a bit like getting dropped in the middle of the jungle. Sometimes I'll go, you know, you can even go on like a Borders and look for groups, and then look in the what else they bought, or if you like this, you might like this, you know, and then you can find something, you know, that's not heard of, and then go that route, and then that can lead you to more. Like there's the one thing is that I do like about the internet. My favorite part is just the breadcrumb trail that it leaves, and so you can go find a group, and even if that's not the one, there's usually a trail of crumbs that you can find to what you need. And I've found a lot of groups that way by kind of going on a MySpace site and then looking in their friends and seeing other bands that are their friends. You know, and you click on, and then all of a sudden that's closer to what you need, and then maybe one of their friends is even closer to what you need. And it can drive you nuts a little bit, but it's kind of fun for me because you can find other bands. And MySpace is great too because the player comes up and you can listen to 4 songs, or, you know, in the player pretty quickly, and you can kind of get a vibe and move on, and that's a nice thing. The Suburban Girl movie had a lot of cues, and so that was challenging because it had a limited budget and it had a lot of cues. And there were some things that I put in. One of the cues that I really liked was Imogen Heap, speeding cars. And I put it into the scene where Brett, the main character, is going through a blue period, basically. She's just broken up with her boyfriend, he cheated on her, and it was bad scene. And she's laying in her bed, she's been in her room for days, and that song was just so great, and I was so happy that I thought of it. I just thought of the song, and I mean, it's been used. That song had actually, I think it was actually used in Grey's Anatomy once before, but it just came into my head as like something that I thought would be great for that scene. And it was out of our price range, you know, and it took, this is where my promotion experience came into play, because I had to negotiate and wriggle with Sony and wriggle with, I think that's an EMI license. But I had to do a lot because that was actually the year that Imogen Heap got nominated for a Grammy Award. So, you know, like as soon as I said this cue should work and everybody agreed with me, the Grammy nominations came out, and I was like, oh, you know, I'm never going to get this cue now. And it was tough. But we did a lot of like wrangling, and we did some compromising, and we did some things that we had to do. But I was really proud that we were able to get that, because it was, and we got it. You know, I won't say for how much, but we got it for nothing basically, and it was a great, not nothing, but we got it inexpensively, and I was really appreciative of everybody at Sony and EMI for helping out with that. Actually, I think it might be Warner Chappell, so I'm sorry if I'm not. But that was a good coup for me. So I guess that would be the one that I felt, you know, kind of just great, more on a negotiation point than a song standpoint. There's a horror movie with Chris Kattan and Jamie Denton, and there's a scene where they're all turning into zombies. It's actually a zombie western. It's kind of a funny movie. It's called Undead or Alive, and the zombies are ripping the heads off of these cowboys, and I put in Ronnie James Dio, Stand Up and Shout, and I just thought it was such a funny, because the movie it's meant to be a little spoofy, and I thought that cue was just really, really great, and it held its own. I mean, the way it works, you know, cues get temped in and they last. Sometimes they last and die, sometimes they last and stay, sometimes they don't last and die and come back. I mean, you're moving things around in post-production all the time, and the Dio cue lasted the whole time, and it was like a week before we were going to mix, and I was so happy that I'd gotten Dio, you know, my childhood like favorite band, one of them, you know, along with Iron Maiden and Judas Priest. I was a rocker, and at the last minute, they did a screening, and it came back overwhelmingly negative that the Dio cue was in there. Nobody liked it at the screening, like the other people in the business. So it got booted out, which is fine, because I accept the fact that, you know, it was my personal preference, but that's where I can't let my personal preference get in the way of what's right for the movie or what's right for the common, you know, because when you're making films, just like when you're making music, I think, you know, your job is to, I'm going to get on my soapbox a little bit here, but I think your job is to, you know, create something that is an expression of what you want, or who you are, and saying what you want to say, but in a way that like the most people can access it. And it's definitely your job when you're making a movie, because there's people's money on the line, and you have to deliver a product that's going to access a lot of people. Music, you could argue, is not so much that way, because, you know, it's a different type of medium, but I still think, you know, like, I've heard interviews with Sting where Sting would just blatantly admit, I write songs to be hits, and some songs I write for myself, and then I always put a few songs on every record to make sure I have a hit. And I think that's really smart. I still think, I don't think it takes away from him being an amazing artist or an incredible songwriter or, you know, a creative mind. I just think that it is what it is, and that's just smart business, you know, in a sense. So the Dio song didn't stay, and that was a big bummer for me. But you know, one thing that did happen in that movie, which is the first movie, and kind of brought me full circle. I wrote a song for that movie. And the end title of the movie ended up being my song. And that was one of those things where I kind of wrote it one afternoon, just goofing around, and I did a recording of it, and I sent it to the director to put up on the website, because there was a website, you know, that was created while they were shooting the movie, and he loved it, and he put it up on the website. And then we started messing around with it for end title. And it was a little hard, because as the music supervisor and it being my song, you know, of course I'm going to be partial to it. Of course I wanted it in the movie. So once again, I had to kind of back off, and it was in, it was out, it was in, it was out. And then it ended up being in and being used for a fight scene in the movie. So it got 2 uses in the film, and I was really happy about it. So, you know, for me, someone who was always a musician and growing up wanting to do that, and then kind of becoming an executive for a long time, and then going into this to actually have something that I creatively created end up in the movie was kind of rewarding. I think a lot of music supervisors probably wouldn't admit this, but they probably would tell you that they instinctively want to shy away from that, because, you know, they think that that's not the way to do it. But I think that it is. Part of me thinks that it is a really good way to do it. Like, there was an opening title for